Welcome to the Lead Change podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Mulcahey. I'm an orthopedic sports medicine surgeon with a huge interest in contributing to the growth and development of other leaders. On this podcast, we will share stories from many leaders in all medical specialties to understand the skills necessary to be an effective leader. We'll celebrate their success and hear about strategies to overcome hurdles. We will also highlight some of the unique challenges faced by women in medicine who are interested in pursuing leadership positions and the importance of mentorship, sponsorship, and allyship in achieving and being successful in those roles. Let's work together, build on shared experiences, learn from those before us, and use these lessons to propel us forward in our career. Let's lead change. Welcome, everyone, to the Lead Change podcast. I am so excited to have my very good friend and colleague, Dr. Michele Marcolongo, on the podcast today. Dr. Marcolongo is the Drozdick Endowed Dean of Engineering at Villanova University, where she is also a professor of mechanical engineering. Prior to this position, she served as Senior Associate Vice Provost for Translational Research at Drexel University, Associate Dean of Intellectual Property for the College of Engineering, Associate Vice Provost for Research, and Professor of Materials Science and Engineering. Dr. Marcolongo's field of research is biomaterials, or materials that can be implanted into the body to replace diseased or damaged tissue. Dr. Marcolongo has co-founded 3 companies and was a founding board member of ELATES, Executive Leadership for Academics in Technology, Engineering, and Science. She is a fellow of the NAI, AIMBE, and Alpha Sigma Mu. Dr. Marcolongo has been awarded the Orthopedic Research Society Women's Leadership Forum Award in 2023 and the American Society for Medical and Biological Engineering 2022 Impact Award for Mentorship. She has authored a book entitled Academic Entrepreneurship, a how-to on translating research from discovery to commercialization for academics. Dr. Marcolongo received her doctorate from the University of Pennsylvania and had worked for GE and DuPont before joining higher education. Michele and I have known each other for over 12 years. We have collaborated on several research projects. I consider her a mentor and a very good friend, and I respect her tremendously. I recently worked with Michele and several of her colleagues within and outside of Villanova as part of a sports and performance engineering advisory board to help inform the development of a sports and performance engineering master's program at Villanova. This program has since been approved and is one of the first of its kind in the country, and I hope Michele will share some more details about this during our discussion. I always enjoy any opportunity to work with Michele. She's an exceptional leader, and I'm very excited for her to share some of her expertise and lessons learned through her many high-level leadership roles. Michele, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Mary, and thanks for the very kind introduction. But it's always a pleasure to work with you. One of my favorite people.
Thank you. I am super excited. So before we dive into some of your specific roles, can you just touch a little bit on your background in engineering and your area of research interest?
Yes, I started out in college as a mechanical engineer, and I was very interested in aerospace and also playing lacrosse. So I did both of those things. And when I finished, I joined GE Aerospace on a training program. And so I rotated through different jobs and had some leadership there, training there. And we got our master's degrees at night. So we were very busy through all that. And then about halfway through, a couple of years into my job, I was 23 years old, and my mom became diagnosed with cancer and passed away 9 months later. So I was 23 when she passed away. She was only 56. And that was the first time I had ever spent any time in a hospital caring for her and caring for her at home. I took a leave from work for a bit and cared for her at home. And that whole experience then had me change a little bit my direction in engineering. So at that point, I said, maybe I could use my engineering skills to help patients and help develop treatments for patients. And so I went back to school and got my PhD in bioengineering, and I really haven't looked back from there. That has been the blessing of my life, and if I could say, a silver lining in a very sad and difficult time for my family and me. That's one area that used that difficult time for some good, I guess I would say. So I've been a bioengineer doing biomaterials, developing medical devices for like over 30 years. So we've had a lot of experience in that, and I've enjoyed it. I still have an active research lab and enjoy that every day. So that's how I came to it.
Yeah, that's incredible. Despite the many conversations we've had, I did not know that. And of course, very sorry about your mom and that experience and how challenging that must have been, but incredible to see what you've done with your career as a result of that. And so really turned that in and just had an incredible impact on the field. So that's really amazing. You previously served as chair of materials science and engineering at Drexel University in Philadelphia, which is actually where we first met. So
Yes.
explain to all of us a bit about what your role entailed and what were some of your main responsibilities in that position.
Yeah, as chair, I was responsible for the faculty, staff, and all the undergrad and graduate students in our department, and also served on the leadership committee for our College of Engineering. So just sort of, I look at being chair as like being mayor of your own little town. You're kind of responsible for all dimensions, but of your own area. So I really enjoyed that very much. Recruiting new faculty, setting new directions for the department, with our colleagues, helping the students to find where they wanted to go and helping them get there. It's extremely rewarding position.
What were some of the main initiatives or programs that you were able to help implement while you were serving in that role?
Well, one thing, we were a pretty ambitious bunch, I guess I would say, at that time, both before I became chair and through the time I became chair. And we had a singular goal to be like very high in the rankings, national rankings of departments of material science and engineering. And we were very active in research as well as teaching, but very sort of super active in research. And so through this time, we developed some strategies and got the word out about ourselves and became a top 10 department in material science and engineering in the country. And so while that's kind of a indirect measure, I think it kind of represented what we were trying to do, which was trying to grow excellence in impactful research and outstanding teaching within our department. And the outcome was really the increase in rankings that we were able to see. So that was one goal. Another goal was really to help students really transition into college, because that transition from high school to college is a challenging one for many undergraduates. And so we started a peer mentoring program, and we had our junior students mentoring our freshman students coming in. And it turned out to be like a wild success, because the freshmen liked having like a buddy when they came into school, someone that they could ask any questions of. Should I take this professor? Should I, where should I live, in what dorm? Where should I go for pizza? Like any question they had. And the students would help them. And then we brought them all together in a group. And the juniors loved being the kind of big sister or big brother. And they really relished their mentoring role. And then when we had the freshmen who participated in it, they couldn't wait to be juniors so they could participate in that. So that peer mentoring program, it was kind of worked out very well. So I was proud of that, because it made that transition to college for those students just that much easier.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love both of those things. Like, I mean, I had direct exposure to doing research with you, to hearing about other projects in the College of Engineering, to getting an idea of what everybody else was doing. So really, really fantastic work. And that's incredible that between the teaching and the research that really led to increasing the ranking, which is huge. So it's fantastic to give, that your department, the division, that visibility, and it certainly helped the institution as a whole. And that peer mentoring program, so great for a lot of reasons. But I love how the junior, like the more senior, students were appreciating the opportunity to interact with the freshmen. And that is kind of analogous to so many things we face in our career, but it's also a great leadership training opportunity, like very early on. It's so tremendous to set the foundation for then moving on into more graduate level studies, into their careers. But also, it's kind of akin to being early in practice in medicine, and having someone who's a little bit more senior to you help guide you through that process. Like, where do I write the note? Like, where do I put this thing? And just having some supervision just makes it a little bit less scary. So that's fantastic. That was so successful. I hope that it's ongoing.
Yeah,
I hope that
still,
has
still
continued.
going. I'm
Yeah,
glad to
that's
hear it. Yeah.
fantastic. um,
In
so
fact,
I
I
mentioned.
started here as
Oh, go
well.
ahead, Michelle, please.
No, I said when I came here, I started the same. We
Oh,
replicated
nice. And
10
we
years.
are going to talk all about Villanova, everybody. So stay on the edge of your seat for that for sure. I mentioned briefly in the introduction that you're a founding board member and active mentor for ELATES, which is Executive Leadership for Academic Technology, Engineering, and Sciences. So huge congratulations. And before I ask you to expand on this a bit, I'll share with everyone listening that Michelle participated in the Executive Leadership in Academic Medicine program as well. And at the time, there was no engineering equivalent. So Michelle is actually one of the people who very strongly encouraged me to apply for ELAM and wrote me a letter of support, and I'm hugely grateful for that. So
It was easy.
thank you. Thank you so much. But with all that being said, Michelle, please share with us how you decided to help found Elates and kind of what's the foundation? What's the focus of the group?
Yeah, the Elates is really geared toward taking women in mid-career levels of academics in STEM who are really underrepresented in leadership roles in STEM. So less than 13% of chairs of STEM departments are women. About the same, about 15% of like engineering deans are women. So we're kind of, it was underrepresented, and the vision really that Diane McGrain had, who was leading this whole endeavor, who is an OBGYN by training and practice, she recruited me to help her take the executive leadership program for women in medicine and translate it to the general university in STEM. And so, yeah, I did take ELAM with all the MDs, we had a neuroscience, ER docs, gerontologists in my group. And I learned so much from them and really enjoyed it. And then was able to take those concepts and translate them into how we run the general university organization and in particular STEM leadership. So it was fun. We had a great board. We had Joe Bordogna, who was the past director of NSF on our board, and Steve Director, who was Dean of Engineering at Michigan at the time, and then a National Academy member, and many others who were participating in this whole process. And so we did it. We organized a curriculum, and then since we did that, I maintained on the board and have every year participated in the program as a learning community advisor or as a career counselor or a keynote speech last year at the graduation, which was quite an honor for me. So I'm always down there doing something with the Elates still. I enjoy that very much.
Wow, that is incredible. Congratulations on the keynote last year. Very, very well deserved.
It was fun. Thank you.
That's fantastic. But so what are some of the current working or future planned initiatives for Elates?
Well, Elates is started as a program for women, and this next year will be including men for the first time. So that will be a change in the community of practice that will be there. So that's probably the biggest change coming down the pike. And then, it's a really interesting time for higher ed. There's a lot of external changes going on, as we all know. And so, there's just that much more reason to hone your leadership skills and to think about your core values and how you're going to lead through the change that's being imposed on us as well as the change we're trying to drive. So I think the program is even more pertinent than ever for men and women going forward.
Yeah, excellent points. And I mean, as I'm sure you're well aware, ELAM is sort of going through the same change where this year the applications are open to all men and women in medicine and science. And there are definitely advantages to that. And I think you hit on a really important point related to it is that, right, it's just knowing that change is going to happen. Right. And we're facing change. We're facing a lot of change now, but we face change really every day. And as you really made the excellent point, it's just how to deal with that and how to adapt. And so I love that Elates is embracing that too.
Yes.
And you just sort of try to get ahead of it. And then you have some control and ability to kind of guide that process. So just really, really important to just embrace it and know it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think having the tools, where Elates is good is giving you tools and methods and mechanisms to help your leadership. And you choose, of course, how you lead, but it's nice to have some options presented to you, from a management perspective. So I think it's very helpful, especially now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's critical and really one of the biggest benefits of participating in that type of program is to get a strong foundation, learn skills, figure out what works best for you, and just be able to maybe approach situations in a little bit better prepared.
That's right.
And have the tools in your toolbox.
Yeah.
So you have served in several leadership roles, and we've touched on some of them, and we'll definitely dive into some others, including the very important role that you currently hold. But before we do that, I wanted to have you share a little bit with us about what really drives you, Michelle. What's your purpose and motivation in all that you do? Like, what really is your why?
It's not an easy question, but I try to answer that. And I think I have two parts to me professionally. One, I think, is the drive for research and generation of new knowledge. This idea of really taking some idea, exploring it in the lab, and then trying to translate it all the way through to the bedside. I think that to me is the most rewarding aspect of what I do. When I get one of my designs or one of our designs, things we work on, to go to the clinic, that First of all, the night before we implant it, I'm like up all night. I'm like thinking of every reason that we shouldn't do it. But once we do it and you see like people get off the table and without pain, or maybe you're saving some lives here and there, these things are really what drive me to get up and go into the research lab, because most days in the research lab are completely forgettable. You're just doing stuff, you're just going along. It seems like nothing's happening. But then there's a day when the experiment goes so well. You see a result that is highly significant. And when you have that day, I remember that we're doing our first implant, our first company. We were testing a device for relieving spinal pain, lower back pain. And the whole principle was based on restoring mechanics. And we restored the mechanics in the experiment, and we saw that the implant actually worked. Like it did what we had hypothesized it would do. And that day I can remember where everybody was standing in the lab, who was in the lab, where I was, what the data showed. I mean, it was totally memorable. And those are the days you work for, the days where things come together. And it takes a lot of days that are forgettable, but those days are remember. So that still drives me. I'm still looking for those days all the time. We still find them. We still have them. And then on the other side of my why is really leading in administration and trying to really bring out highest quality higher education. And that is at the best possible way of educating undergraduates for a really long-term, interesting career in engineering and helping the future of technology and society. I love trying to support faculty members and how they can do their best scholarship. What do I need to give you so you can be the best scholar? Go get your career awards and all your accolades and do amazing high impact work. I like building a culture of respect in our community so that we can all work together and no one feels excluded, that everybody is involved and everyone's opinion counts, from faculty, staff, and students. And then I also like using data to make decisions when I can, because, data informed. So not totally data driven, but certainly I like to do comparative analyses and kind of look at data to help see where we fit in that. So for me, also helping higher ed be the best possible place for learning and knowledge generation. That's another why. So I have bifurcated whys, I guess.
Yeah. I and having known you for many years, yes, I see that in everything that you do. Your commitment is really incredible on the side of science and leadership and support and growth for your faculty, for your students, for the graduate students, for everyone that you're helping to kind of oversee and guide through their careers. And I love that you made the point too about creating a culture of respect. Right, and that everyone is there and supporting each other. And I had the huge pleasure of meeting several of your colleagues at Villanova when I was there last April. And so I saw that. I saw that right there. So really incredible, the team that you've built and continue to build, and the support that you have for all of them and that they have for each other too. Really incredible.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. You go along these lines, all interrelated, is you currently serve as the Drozdick Endowed Dean of Engineering at Villanova University. Huge, huge, huge congratulations. I'm so happy for you. And I was hugely excited when I found out that you were selected for this position. It's a huge accomplishment. So I wonder, at what point in your career did you maybe start having aspirations of becoming Dean of Engineering? Were there any specific things that you did to try to prepare yourself for that type of role?
Yeah. I think, many of us sort of just like look forward. We're kind of goal-oriented people. And I had tried a lot of positions of administration throughout my career in parallel to my research career. But also, I was in the provost's office doing like research, helping with research direction for our university, which was really fascinating. So I learned how research works, from people doing dance and sculpture to people doing, business case studies and criticizing Shakespeare, like just everything, all the scholarship aside from like medicine and engineering. So I learned so much about the whole university that way. And then I worked a lot in translational research because I do love that, bringing the ideas to commercialization and back to society. I was associate dean and chair, so I was kind of bouncing around to all these things, both locally and then through the university. And at some point, I just thought, well, yeah, maybe it's time that I could take these skills and try to apply them to running a college. So having all all those experiences really made me feel prepared, I guess, because yeah, I had the local and the global experience at least. But really, I guess one thing that I tried to do was kind of define my management style because when you're leading a college, it's more about management. A dean doesn't accomplish anything by himself or herself. It's only the work of the people. Then we take credit for everything, but you can't. It's such a community, you know, team sport. But you still have to lead that team. I spent a lot of time trying to think about my management style, refine my management style, and practice that as I was chair. And then I think when I came into being a dean and when I was preparing to be a dean, that really helped because walking in, I kind of knew my philosophy, how I was going to work it, and kind of made it a smooth transition when I was started here at this job.
Yeah. So that's a really critical thing. You emphasize a lot of key things, but first and foremost, right, nothing is accomplished as an individual, right? It's all a team. That is so important. And understanding your style, your leadership style, your management style is also critical to then be able to guide the team effectively. And so I wonder too, just can you share a little bit about how you would describe your management style and how you find that to be effective?
I'm pretty much of a servant leader. That's how they describe my style, my style. And by that, what I mean is in trying to find ways to support the faculty, let's just say for the faculty part, I try to give them resources they need. And sometimes they don't even know like what we're doing behind the scenes to help them make their lives a little easier, make it a little nicer for them to do their good work. So I do a lot of that kind of back end stuff to try to really but with the intent of really helping them and position them all, making introductions for them, giving them, grant writers to help them write their proposals and things, or lab equipment, pieces of things that they need to help be successful in their scholarship. And then, yeah, then you have to have a good team around you that complements you, I think. And so I I try to be a good delegator and not be a micromanager for the most time. So kind of set the direction and let them, our management team, our leadership team, go and do their good work. And so most of the time that works. Sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time you can lead by consensus and sometimes you can't. But my preferred style is the service leadership style. But every once in a while you just have to like make decisions in a more dictatorial style. But that's more rare, I would say.
Yeah, and really critical to understand that too, but, that you can have one leadership style that works in most situations, but it might not always work, and
Yeah.
bottom line is as a leader, like, sometimes you do have to make the decisions, and that's why a big part of the reason why you're in that position is that people trust you to help make those decisions, so I think that's really critical for everyone listening too, to understand that. And also a key point you made, the behind the scenes, right? That there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes that maybe the faculty or the students don't know, but things you're doing to help support them and promote their career growth. And so that's, very much related to kind of the sponsorship side of things, whether you're, making a connection with another faculty member or telling them about a position that's available or a committee that they could be on. And so that's huge, huge, huge to supporting growth for your faculty. So fantastic that that's obviously a top priority for you. You know, what you
Thank you.
have done already so much at Villanova since you've been there. And can you highlight for us some of the accomplishments you're most proud of since you started? And interrelated in there, explain a little bit. I think that this is probably related to one of the accomplishments you're proud of, but is the sports and performance engineering master's program. So share with us some information about just accomplishments in general and a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I'd probably start by saying that Villanova is really a wonderful university, and our college is an outstanding college of engineering. So we already starting with a good place here, so we can just build on that. We're not just a basketball school, but we are as March Madness is just ending
Although a good
here.
basketball school too.
um, but we're guided by Augustinian values here of truth, unity, and love. And that kind of mission of university really leads us into how we lead the colleges. So that's like an overall mission of the university, just a philosophy of truth, unity, and love. And then in the college, we basically our College of Engineering, but we try to do work and research that helps in the matters of, we say, of the matters of the heart and mind, and basically engineer for the common good. So a lot of our work is geared that way. We do work in like sustainable engineering, bioengineering, stormwater management, communications, data centers, and lots of things that really help to impact society. So that's kind of our starting point. And then some things that we've accomplished. We have an undergrad curriculum where we have every Villanova engineer is a sustainable engineer. So we really care about the environment and the impact of our engineering approaches on the environment. And so we teach our students, whether they're designing chips or rockets or biodevices or anything, to really take sustainability as a design principle. Like, it has to be strong or fast or lightweight. It has to be sustainable. We just want that to be ingrained in the design process for our students. And so we've been able to integrate sustainable engineering throughout our curriculum. And the students don't even know they're getting a dose of medicine, but they're really like, they have it. They have it. They talk it. They know it. And I think that having that instilled in our students is going to make them better engineers throughout, their careers and their lives. So that's one thing. I'm proud of our faculty for doing that, and I'm proud that we're taking that kind of approach with our engineers. Another thing, we started a new biomedical engineering undergrad major and master's and PhD program. So we're building biomedical engineering into our program, and that seems to be going well so far. So that's something new that we added, the first new major in 30 years here in our college. And so we're
Wow.
happy about that. And yeah, so that's kind of, I'm very excited about that. And that's my own field. So I'm excited to bring that here to Villanova. We have some great people running that program. We're very happy about that. We also built a new engineering building, sitting in my office. So it took about 4 years and built this building, which is really state of the art laboratories and teaching labs for our community. And all the students love it. They hang out here all the time because we make them work a lot, but they work together here in the common area, and they really have been using the building like to its fullest. So I'm happy about that. And then when we're talking about the sports and performance engineering program, something I wanted to do for a while. And here, because we are like a sports school as well as an academic university, we started this program. And Mary, you've been generous with your time in advising us through our board, and we have started as a research program, and we have about 4 years now of research programs in sports engineering, where we pair an engineer with a coach, and either a coach inside the university or professional coaching, and then we look for opportunities. What are the challenges that coaches are seeing, and what are technical solutions our engineers can provide? And our students love working on these projects. So we've done things like we're looking at risk factors for ACL tears, mostly in female athletes, but that would obviously translate also to male athletes. But our female athletes are having a terrible time with ACL tears, and our coaches were very concerned about that. So we're using AI and a lot of data that we collect to try to look at ways to predict risk factors for ACL injury, and using some things like FIFA 11, I think the numbers and that program, we are hoping to do interventions and see if we can alter the risk of those athletes in ACL tears. So that's sort of one approach. We're looking at the cognitive performance of athletes before and after use of either stimulants or meditation as ways to see how they can improve performance. And we do things like use VR goggles and pitch pitches to people holding a censored bat, and they can practice a pitch from any MLB pitcher that's programmed in there, professional pitching. And so they can practice that. And now that we're adjusting that same technique for soccer goalies, so soccer goalies can practice with the VR goggles. And so it's just sort of a way to reinforce learning and skills development for athletes. So those are just some of our projects. And so with the interest of that from our students and our faculty, then we decided to launch a sports and performance engineering master's degree. And this is one of the first of its kind in the country. So we're just getting this off the ground now. And it's very exciting for us just to look at ways, again, engineers can help athletes sort of with analytics, with sensors, with even stadium designs that our civil engineers might do. And so there are just so many ways that engineers and sports science are interacting and connecting that we think can lead to help in with elite athletes and sport and performance equipment and data sciences, and then also youth sports. So it can really go the gamut there.
Wow, absolutely incredible. And that's just a small sampling of all of that's been happening since you've been there. So that's really amazing. Congratulations on all of that. And when we were there a year ago, when we met in person as the advisory board, we got to hear, see presentations on several of these projects, and it's really incredible to see what they're doing, how interesting it is. I mean, obviously, I'm a sports medicine surgeon too, so I'm a little
Yeah.
bit biased. I think all of this is very interesting, but I think one of your questions to all of us there was, do you see this, like, will our students be able to get jobs in this field? Like 110% yes. I think anyone listening knows anything about sports, absolutely. There are so many applications for engineering and sports and so many ways that those fields are tied together. So it is great that the students are having a chance to work directly with coaches. What a unique opportunity to have that collaboration between engineering and sports and athletics. And, and another aspect of your career or other research is a lot of collaboration between engineers and physicians. So I think it's just tremendous, the collaborations that you can have. And deep down, like, I wish I would love to get like an engineering degree now. I would love to get this degree. Unfortunately, it's a little bit difficult. But I think it's so interesting. It's so important. It really is a great pairing between medicine and engineering and sports and engineering. And so I love that you're doing all of that. So I can't wait to see how that continues to evolve.
Thank you. And thank you for all of your guidance. We really do appreciate it. Absolutely.
My
Couldn't do it without.
huge, huge pleasure. So, throughout your career, you've worked with numerous leaders within and outside of your institution. And can you share a little bit about some of the lessons you've learned from leaders that you admire and what you think really makes them good leaders?
Yeah, I have had the pleasure of working with some really great leaders, and then other leaders that I've just kind of met but haven't really worked with. And one of those is a gentleman named Norm Augustine. And Norm Augustine was the CEO of Lockheed Martin. He was someone, actually, when we were starting a late suite, I interviewed him as to try to get his ideas about this program. And so I got a chance to really have a nice long discussion with him. And it was one of the things that he did and told me about was that whenever he kind of catches somebody in his organization who's gone above and beyond their job and done just like hit a home run in their work, he would have like old-fashioned stationery, and he'd write them like a thank you note and a note of recognition, just kind of acknowledging that. And then he'd give those out, but they were like very special. It wasn't like every day he was doing this, but so when somebody got one of these notes, it meant an awful lot. And it wasn't a bonus, it wasn't a raise, it was his personal note. And so I thought that was very impactful. So when I became chair, I started doing the same thing. I have given out these notes as I've been chair and as I've been dean. So that's like a total of, 12, 13 years now I've been writing these notes to kind of catch people just acknowledging like, wow, that was just a great job. Thank you so much for your work. So I took that from Norm Augustine. So I thought that was a nice way to lead and to show respect and appreciation for the people you're working with.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it doesn't take that much time. And like you said, it's not a bonus, it's not an additional title, it's not a new role. It's just literally but taking the time to hand
Yeah.
write a message, which in our world in 2026 like is so rare.
So rare. So rare. Yeah. And then when I've written these notes for people, they often write me like an email like, thank you so much for the note. Like they give a thank you for the thank you note. It's just kind of funny because and I see them on people's desks, like they keep them. And so I think it does mean something to people to be recognized for their hard work. So I learned that from Norm Augustine. Yeah. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Were there other things that you took away from your interactions with him?
He also said when he was a young engineer, he wanted to make a list of leaders that he admired. So he started out and he thought, probably have like 50. So he made a list and he said he got to like 14 or 15 and he's like, I couldn't think of anybody else that I really admired. I actually have tried that exercise as well. It's very interesting. Like, who do you really admire? Like anybody, anywhere in the world, like as a true leader. It's a very interesting exercise to go through because it makes you really look and see. Maybe there are a lot of good people, but like the really great people, maybe they're not as common as they should be. Or that's what he found. That's what I found when I did it too.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting. It's like, who are the people that you truly maybe
Truly
respect or
admire.
admire or look
Yeah.
up to or say, who do
Yeah.
I want to emulate? Right. I've never
Yeah.
done that exercise, but it would be interesting. I'm sitting here thinking just briefly, but yeah, I can see how that list would be smaller than you may think initially when you sit down to write it. Like 50, no, actually it's only, 12 or 14. But yeah, it's so great too that you took away that idea of the thank you notes. That's fantastic, and I can see how your faculty appreciate that. It's so awesome. On the flip side though too, we all have interacted with leaders that you just don't quite connect with it. Maybe it's just their leadership style doesn't really resonate with you. And what are some things that you've taken away from those interactions? Like what was it?
That's a good question. I think like lack of organization or lack of direction. I guess I'm pretty strategic in my approach. So when there's like no rhyme or reason to kind of where they're going, I have found that to be frustrating. So I try not to do that too much. Like where I can, I try to set direction. I try to think strategically and then you get some goals accomplished, at the end of the day, rather than just kind of calling it in, just like managing day to day. You could get really bogged down with administrative management if that's the only thing you're doing. You can constantly do expense reports and emails and blah blah blah, but at the end of the day, you'll never have like major accomplishments. Like you asked me to list some things, but to do that, I had to stop doing some other things for a little bit and, you know, let's focus on these and work on these. So I think that's one thing that uh, can be a limitation because there is a lot of just work, like, can be a lot of like administrative work, but you have to rise above that to set direction and set goals for yourself so that you can bring the organization somewhere. I guess that's
That's
one of
such a
mine.
critical point. I love that you made it. And actually, I don't think anyone else has said that on the podcast. I think it's so important, that we every day we're all like bogged down. You can easily get distracted or bogged down by emails or this phone call or you're being asked to do this thing, whether it's for your lab or something related to the clinic or whatnot. But that strategy, that's so great that you brought that up, just having a strategic mindset and planning and you already talked about how you delegate. And so those things are ongoing. And it all ties into your why, right? If your whole team understands your why, what is the mission, vision, what are you ultimately striving for? That's related to the strategy. And then everybody knows what are we working towards. And so it makes it that much more likely that you will accomplish these huge goals and initiatives that you've set out to do and already accomplished many of these things in your time at Villanova. So I really love that point. So I like to ask everyone, and sometimes it catches people a little bit off guard, but I love to ask, what is your superpower, Michelle? What's one of the biggest strengths that contributes to your success and really sets you apart from others?
Okay, Mary, I'll tell you, I was giving a talk and somebody asked me, I was on a panel, I guess, and someone asked me that same question. And I was actually I had nothing. I can tell you it's definitely not self awareness. That's not my superpower. Nothing to give. Oh, it was so embarrassing. So then yeah, some people told me, well, I think this is your superpower. So I was like, okay, I'll try to take that. But I think, when I think about it, I think try to strive for humility. I mean, just talking about it means I'm not, but I try to strive for humility but with confidence at the same time. So try to balance humility, but with confidence because you need to be humble in order to listen and learn from people and not think I know everything, even though you may have the answer in your head, but you still need to listen to people and that may change how the answer goes. And you may not have all the information. So that could change how things go. So there's a certain amount of humility that I strive for. But also confidence. In my job now, well, we've always been writing grants. You have to be confident when you're writing a grant or there's no chance. I do a lot of fundraising that has to have a certain amount of confidence and hiring, like all these big decisions. So I think I try to balance that. And we have an alum from Villanova who's written a really nice leadership book called Leading Matters. And his name is John Hennessy. He graduated from Villanova as an undergrad and went on to become eventually the president of Stanford. And he's currently the CEO of Alphabet, which is Google's parent company. And in his book, he has a quote that I really like. He says, perhaps the only way to be both humble and ambitious is to be ambitious for the good of others. And I think that's maybe what I try to have as my superpower.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I think that absolutely you have those very strong skills and it contributes to you being such an exceptional leader. And I have never heard that quote before. So that really, I think, embodies you to a T, and just so fantastic that it's tied to Villanova too. I want to close out our excellent, excellent discussion with a few questions for you that I like to ask everyone. And a couple of these you may have sort of already answered, but we'll just kind of go through this. So first, I mean, this podcast is lead change. And I wonder, Michelle, what does lead change mean to you?
First of all, I love this podcast, Mary. I'm so glad that you're doing it. I think I've listened to all your episodes and really enjoyed them all.
Thank you.
I think leading change is what we were just talking about a little bit, listening, learning, and reflecting before really setting new direction. And so if you can listen to people and bring their concepts into the direction where you're going, it will be so much easier to lead change because the people you're trying to lead have already been part of where you're going. So it's this kind of collaborative approach to deciding the directions you're going, and then leading change through it will come so much more easily because the people have already they've contributed to the ideas themselves. They are their ideas in many cases. So I think that that's important, and I think it's also when you're leading change, I think it's important to think about different groups of people. So I like to think about it that when the iPhones first came out, do you remember that, Mary?
I do remember that.
When the iPhones first came out, some people were like first adopters. They were out, they were showing their iPhones. They had their iPhones all around. Then other people were like, okay, I'm going to see, like, is this that much better than my Palm Pilot? And I'm going to see what happens. And then after a couple months, they got their iPhones, right? And then there are people today who still have flip phones. So I look at this as when you're leading change, you're going to have the people who are like onboard early adapters. You have the people who are they're not going to jump right in, but they're going to watch. And if it's going well, they're going to, okay, they're going to join. And that's probably, like 2/3 of the whole group you're trying to lead. And then you're going to have the people who still want the flip phone. And you're either going to eventually, get them an iPhone, or they're just going to always have their flip phone. But you're going to have most of the change going on. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, yeah. What a fantastic way, definitely, to look at change and how to sort of lead through that, how to be effective as as you're navigating that and having everyone on board. And it's so critical, like you said, to try to take into account everyone's opinions and consensus. And then they're that much more willing to help move through it because they've contributed to the idea. So really, really fantastic and great way to think about that concept. And you already mentioned one leadership book. I love that. I've never heard of that book before. And I wonder, are there any other leadership books that you've read that you have found to be particularly impactful for you?
Yeah, there's like a classic book that I keep going back to. It's called Reframing Academic Leadership, and it's by Bowman and Gallows. These are business school writers and scholars who study organizations, but then they took a very specific look at academic organizations and how they're structured and how they work. And I actually did like book club with all my leadership on this book, and we looked at it
Wow.
because they have 4 frames of academic leadership. And one is like the structural frame, which is like organizations and policies that, you have to set up an organization. Human resources, which are like skills and relationships. The political side, power, and, also coalitions and how things work behind the scenes. And then also the symbolic part of leadership, which is setting a vision, the impression that people have of the organization, your goals and your inspiration. I found that book to be very helpful. And sometimes when you're looking at a problem or a situation, you can go back to those 4 frames and it helps you navigate through, what you're dealing with. So I found that one to be very just practical and helpful. I think another book that's not necessarily leadership, but I feel like it's leadership, is a book called Endurance by Scott Kelly. And Scott Kelly was, you may remember, an astronaut who spent almost a year in space. And so this book, Endurance, is kind of an autobiography, but he talks about he and his twin brother Mark is a U.S. senator at the moment. And those 2 boys, when they were boys, they had some, like a little bit of a learning disability. I think they may have been dyslexic or ADD. They had a learning disability as boys. And their father said, okay, you 2 boys, you're not paying much attention to school and stuff. So I've arranged it when they got to high school. You're both going to be plumbers. And then those two boys went back and they were like, we don't want to be, but we don't want to be plumbers. And so they like kind of like got jolted into, they both end up going to college and then, learning to be pilots and then getting into, the astronaut program and like, just like, but it's all this kind of back and forth. Like he's on the space station and they're doing like all of that where the Russian group had one end of the space station, they had the other, and the Russians would invite them to dinner only on Friday nights, and that's the only time they saw them all week, and then they had a good time, and then they went back to their stuff. But it's fascinating. It's just like it's actually a story of grit and determination and overcoming, personal challenges to be both those people. Both brothers became extremely successful, and I like that whole story of
Yeah.
how you can overcome things and the leadership that they had to show to get to where they got to.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I love, right, it's the book that's like maybe not defined as a leadership book, but so many helpful and
Yes.
beneficial like leadership principles that you can apply to your position, to things that we're doing in medicine, to all of that. So that is fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. The list is growing long of these books that I want to read. And I also appreciate that you shared too the book from the kind of business professor, like work that came largely from the world of business school, but is very much applicable to academics, to academic medicine, to that. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity to learn from our business colleagues. And so thank you for sharing that too. I think there's so many valuable lessons. And the last question for you, and you did mention a quote that you love already, which was fantastic. Do you have any other favorite quotes?
I have a favorite quote that I find myself saying a lot these days. And I guess the origin is not particularly well known, but I think it's kind of a Chinese proverb. And it's that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. And I keep finding myself always saying that. So I think about that a lot. Are we behind? Should we have done this before? It doesn't matter. Like, let's do it now. Let's get going.
Yeah, just
We'll
do
still
it.
do
And
something good.
yeah.
Let's go.
That's awesome. I love that. I've never heard that. So really fantastic, very applicable, and just like helps kind of motivate you. Like, let's do it. Let's do it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna move forward and then see what comes from that. So Michele, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I have absolutely loved this conversation. I'm really inspired, honestly, by all that you do. I've learned a lot from you as a leader over the years, and I am very sure that everyone listening will be motivated and inspired by your insight and the many lessons that you've shared. So I look forward to many, many more opportunities to work together in the future. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you for all that you do. This podcast is great. It's a great service, and it's so interesting to see how different people approach leadership. It's always fascinating, and you do such a great job in bringing out the stories. So thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you again sometime soon.
Thank you. Hope so.